SCP-096 versus a non-SCP called Siren Head. I really like videos that kind of pit one universe against the other in some form, and honestly, my nephew loves stuff like this. My nephew's 3 years old, and he watches a lot of gaming videos that have mods that introduce Siren Head and SCP-096 as playable characters, and usually the creators of the videos do really fun and silly things with them to give him some lovable qualities, which is crazy considering that these are evil beings. Not necessarily evil, but they're entities that kill a lot. Like 096, we don't know its motivations. You know, it may just be pathetic the way it's been portrayed at many times, but that's not to say it don't kill people that see its face, you know. And Siren Head, I don't know if Siren Head's really powerful. I know it's quite intimidating. I've seen very numerous representations of it. Everything from just making a lot of noise that sound like modems to sirens going off and scaring people and even eating people. It's all over the place. And I don't know how powerful it is. I doubt that it has any power level near 096. But all in all, Trevor Henderson's a really creative guy, and it's definitely popular for a reason. So I think it'll be pretty cool to react to it. So this one is 096 versus Siren Head, and it's by SCP Explained. We're gonna react to it today. Make sure you guys let me know what you think about videos like this as well. Make sure to subscribe to SCP Explained, subscribe to me, and hit the like button if you like videos like this. And let's get into it.
Well, hello there, SCP fans.
Hi!
Let's get this out of the way first. You've seen the title and thumbnail,
Yes.
and you're probably wondering,
Yes.
wait, is Siren Head an SCP?
No.
And the answer is no.
It's a
Siren Head
Trevor
is not
Henderson
an
creation.
SCP. It's a freaky internet monster created by renowned Canadian horror artist Trevor Henderson.
Yep.
Your next question is probably, what's with this crazy-looking server bank behind me? Allow me to introduce you to the Anomatron 6000. The latest advancement of supercomputing owned and operated exclusively by the SCP Foundation.
Alright.
It's capable of a whole bunch of interesting features, calculating ideal containment
Like
methods,
calculating
running state-of-the-art Foundation web crawler software, making and editing fun SCP YouTube videos.
I like
but
it.
the most interesting feature that the Anomatron has to offer is running hyper-advanced simulations regarding all things anomalous, with data fed into it by thousands of real-life experiments conducted by the SCP Foundation.
A cool
It's going
way
to
to
save
introduce
countless
more
dollars and
videos like
lives
this.
for Foundation researchers.
I like
but way
it, man.
more
It's
importantly,
creative.
it's going to let us explore all kinds of
Mind-blowing
weird and
what-if
wacky what-if scenarios that would never happen organically.
Sweet.
Could SCP-343 beat Goku or Superman? Who's a deadlier
I like
supernatural killer? SCP-106 or Freddy Krueger? Would the world simply explode from adorableness
that's a hard
if
one.
SCP-999 and Baby Yoda ever crossed those multiversal barriers?
I love
and
me
met?
some Baby
We
Yoda,
can
bruh.
explore all of these questions,
Good.
along with any others you may have down in the comments.
This will be
Seriously,
fun to
comment,
react
we
to,
dare
I
you.
think. A
But
lot
to
of
get
these
things
things.
started, we figured we'd make the Anomatron pit the Foundation's lankiest nightmare monster, SCP-096, against the internet's Trevor Henderson's Siren Head. Sorry, Slenderman, you're just not cool anymore.
I vote 096.
So without further ado,
Every
let's
time,
kick the
man.
Anomatron into gear
096
and see
is
how this wild battle
ridiculously
plays
powerful.
out. It's time for SCP-096
I don't think it would
versus
survive
Siren
versus the
Head.
Gate Guardian
Ricky and
or
Elliot, a pair of aspiring travel
even
YouTubers from
the
California,
Tarrasque.
were taking a vacation to the Pacific Northwest to spend some time in the area's beautiful lush forests. However, while the duo were both big fans of travel for its own sake,
Is that a
they
toucan
weren't
in
just
your pocket,
here
or
for
you
the
just happen to
trees
see
and
me?
fresh air. You see, despite their jet-setting lifestyle, Ricky and Elliot's subscribers and views hadn't exactly been phenomenal lately.
Well,
Turns out
you know,
hiking vlogs and GoPro footage of the two of
happens.
them jumping into absurdly blue water in Bali
YouTuber,
weren't exactly that interesting to people who
up
weren't
and down all the
actually
time,
there.
guys. It's
But
just
Ricky
struggle.
had formulated an ingenious plan to pull the two of them out of obscurity.
Good.
They would hunt down and film real footage of the legendary Siren Head, a supernatural monster said to haunt forests and isolated graveyards.
I think I'd rather hunt
There were
Bigfoot.
plenty of fakers out there on YouTube, but if the two of them could get real footage of Siren Head, and also preferably survive the experience,
Right.
they'd be framing their golden
See,
play
that's the whole
buttons
thing.
in no time. But
Surviving
they were
versus
already
Bigfoot would
encountering
be
certain
easier.
issues. For starters, the two Californians had severely underestimated just how cold it was in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
And as such, were already shivering from
That's
bone-deep cold.
hard,
The second
man.
issue was food.
You're not used
While the
to
two
it
of
or
them
prepared.
had thought ahead and brought a selection of tasty
Some
protein
bars?
they'd also gotten hungry during the early hours of their walk and eaten all of them, leaving them feeling severely out of luck by the time dinner rolled around.
Wow.
And the third and perhaps most problematic issue of all was the fact that Ricky and Elliot didn't exactly have a great sense of direction. During all of their
GPS?
previous trips, they'd been on guided tours with local experts. In this instance, wanting to take all the Siren Head glory and clout for themselves, they decided to come in alone, with the incredibly janky Google Maps app to guide them.
So let me get this straight. You went to a remote area that's freezing with 3 protein bars and Google Maps when all you've ever had exposure to is guided tours before?
As such, as the night
Even
was
YouTube is a
creeping
bad
in,
name,
the
bro.
two aspiring
Come
YouTube
on, man.
celebrities had no idea where they were. Needless to say, it wasn't exactly an ideal situation. And to make matters
Obviously.
worse, Ricky and Elliot had been experiencing some strange feelings for the last couple of hours when they'd gotten particularly deep into the forest.
Okay.
That dread-inducing sensation of being watched by something lurking just out of sight. A gaze with some unknowable and darkly malicious intent boiling behind it. These two poor saps had no idea what was in store for them tonight. And wouldn't you know it, the one watching them right now wouldn't even be the only monster after them. After an expectable amount of bumbling and buffoonery, Ricky and Elliot managed to gather up enough tinder to make a semi-respectable campfire. They could sleep out here tonight, then set off in search of Siren Head or civilization, whichever came first, in the daylight the next day.
Yes,
The duo
smart.
did what they could to remain chipper
Siren Head
in
comes
spite
out there
of
in the
the
day?
ominous
Oh, no.
circumstances. Sure, they were trapped in the depths of the woods alone, but think of the amazing vlog footage they'd get.
Oh,
They'd be like
gosh.
the next Blair Witch crew, except they'd live, hopefully. But
Yeah,
as the duo
hopefully.
sat next to their campfire, they felt that ominous sensation again. The hairs on the back of their necks started standing up. They felt shivers that didn't just come from the cold.
You sure that's just not
More and
protein
more,
bar
they started
withdrawal?
to feel certain that something in this forest was watching them. Something ancient and powerful and evil.
Yes.
That's when they heard the telltale crackle of radio static, and their skeletons
That's
almost
Siren
jumped
Head.
out of their skin. Could it be him? The patron saint of gone missing without a trace, of creeping dread, of bad things coming. Siren Head himself. Both men fell silent. All they could hear was the crackling of their own fire. Had the sound before just been an illusion? A product of a pair of paranoid minds also predisposed to
Maybe.
sense siren-headed monsters lurking amongst
But they
the
both heard
trees.
it.
They'd been reading about a higher rate of disappearances in this area, along with a number of frightening sightings of tall, thin beings and radio static that seemed perfectly consistent with Siren Head activity. That's why they'd come here in the first place. But had they come here to their deaths? The two needed to distract themselves, or they'd go mad from the paranoia. They decided to share a few fun little anecdotes of the travels they'd had before meeting one another, showing the photos they'd saved on their smartphones. Ricky had been to Hawaii, Tahiti,
Better save your battery
Bora
for
Bora,
Google Maps,
Fiji,
boy.
St. Lucia, and the Maldives. Clearly, he liked his vacations warm and
Drain your
sandy.
battery too.
Elliot, on the other hand, tended to like his trips to be a little more adventurous. He'd seen volcanoes, waterfalls, deep and treacherous cave systems,
That's
and
pretty
of
cool.
course, a little guided mountaineering. One photo that Elliot showed Ricky
I like
was
resorts.
particularly breathtaking. He was standing in the foreground of a snowy landscape with an incredible mountain range behind him. When Ricky asked Elliot where exactly he'd taken this picture, strangely enough, he drew a complete blank. Maybe somewhere in Canada or Siberia or
He didn't
something
know?
like that. But it was a hell of a trip, whatever the case. He remembered having a great time.
How would
It
you...
was such a tiny detail, but when looking at the photo, Ricky couldn't help but notice something in the background. A speck of white. Sure, not exactly newsworthy in the snowy mountain range, but this wasn't snow. It was a speck of white that seemed to be a slightly different shade than the rest of the mountain.
Right.
Strange. Perhaps it was just some tiny particles
Looks
stuck
like a
on the lens
ghost
whenever
orb.
the photo was taken. The two continued to chat and warm their hands against the fire, having no idea of the horror they'd just awoken in doing so. Over 100 miles away, at an SCP Foundation containment site, researchers and guards walked around the perimeter of a huge airtight metal cube, reading off diagnostics and audio recordings. For reasons that should be obvious to everyone who's a fan of this channel, there were no camera feeds coming from the inside of the great metal cube.
Is
Only
096?
a faint whimpering sound, like a sad, wounded animal, and the clanking of pacing feet moving back and forth over the metal, dragging forlorn knuckles.
So it was just
They
a
turned
flash?
every head in the room when the crying started to get
Weird,
louder.
man.
Soon it wasn't just quiet weeping. It was a series of
pissed off?
horrendous, slobbering sobs, wails of pure pain and despair. Someone in the room screamed, "Close your eyes and hit the deck!"
Yeah.
Knowing exactly what had happened. They learned well enough from the infamous Incident 096-1-A containment breach that there was no way of stopping this thing until it run its course.
That's correct.
The best they could do was minimize their own fatalities in the process. Everyone in the room did as they were told, hitting the ground,
bust down the
closing their
door
eyes,
or
and
through the
covering
wall.
them with their hands just to be safe. That's when the solid steel of the cube was torn open like crepe paper, and the howling, raging SCP-096 broke free,
Here it comes.
galloping on all fours through the nearest wall, shattering it, and spraying debris everywhere. As mobile task forces were dispatched to track the rampaging abomination and try their best to clear the path ahead as it sought out its target.
That's the
one
best thing
thought
to
was
do.
going through the minds of everyone in the room.
Who's it
Woe
gonna get?
betide the poor fools who saw that monster's face.
Right.
Back in the deep dark forests of the Pacific Northwest,
Strange
the
that it
presence
didn't
of some
actually show
unnerving
the
force
face,
was
but-
becoming far harder to deny for Ricky and Elliot. They heard the sounds of garbled voices out in the woods, the squeals and crackles of radio static.
Yeah.
They saw shapes moving amongst the trees, tall and thin, like long, spindly limbs. While neither wanted to voice their fear, they were both thinking similar things. If there really was a monster out here, why hadn't it killed them? It had all the time in the world to do it. But that was just it, wasn't it? It had all the time in the world, so why rush? It had
It
every
enjoys
advantage. It could
killing,
take
I
its
believe.
time
Siren
and do
Head.
this exactly how it wanted to. Ricky and Elliot had made themselves the perfect prey, and as they saw a huge,
It's a horror
wolf
monster
figure
after
suddenly
all, right?
separate itself from the trees, they began to wonder if it was really worth it to risk both of their lives for YouTube clout. Either way, it was now probably too late.
That's a gold
for
plaque.
regrets.
Pretty good.
Ricky and Elliot's jaws
I got a
fell in
silver one.
horror as the monster emerged from the darkness before them. They recognized the awful, mottled skin stretched over the monster's 40-foot frame. They saw the grasping hands, and up above, the nightmarish faceless head split into a pair of sirens pointing in different
With
directions, each one filled with gnashing teeth and slithering tongues. It was even more terrifying than they could
It is a pretty
possibly have
disgusting,
imagined.
horrible monster.
SirenHead speakers crackled into life and hissed out,
9, 18, 1, child, 17, remove,
What?
vile.
Ricky and Elliot stumbled backwards as SirenHead advanced, its speakers still bleeding hateful static.
Y'all not even
Neither could
recording.
move or speak, only watch as its long, gnarled
Y'all call
fingers
yourself
reached in the
vloggers?
dark to grasp them. There was a terrible pained wail in the woods after that, but it wasn't coming from Ricky, Elliot, or SirenHead. It was distant at first, but soon became
coming
louder and
fast.
louder as the force's point of
096
origin
is
came
not
barreling
slow.
towards them. Even SirenHead couldn't help but turn to see SCP-096, a flash of terrible white fury, come charging towards them in the dark, knocking down all the trees in its path. Leaves and pine needles scattered, trunks exploded into splinters. Nothing would stop the Shy Guy.
So
from
Siren Head doesn't have
claiming its
eyes.
prey.
That means
Nothing
it doesn't
would
see?
stop it from destroying Ricky.
We'll
and
see.
now as it approached, Elliot made the fatal mistake of looking at its face. too. 096 lunged, ready to go in for the kill, when Siren Head's hands closed around the Shy Guy's slender torso. In one fluid motion with surprising strength for its scrawny build, it hurled the Shy Guy into the distance, smashing another several trees in its path.
All
The
right.
words,
My prey, mine,
Wow. Interesting.
hissed out of its speakers. But 096 was only down for mere moments. It
Sure.
sprung back up on its hind and forelegs and started galloping towards Ricky and Elliot again, who were still frozen in place. This
So
time,
it's not
just before
fighting.
the Shy Guy's terrible claws could
It's
close
just
around the two
continuing to
hapless
try to
wannabe
kill.
YouTubers,
At least he's
down
filming
came
now.
Siren Head's clenched fist, pounding 096's head into the dirt.
That
Overhead,
ain't
mobile
gonna
task
stop
force helicopters circled,
Might
wearing
slow
their
it
scramble
down.
goggles and trying to get a visual on the situation unfolding below. They could hardly believe what they were seeing down there. Was some other unclassified anomaly managing to intercept 096 in its rage state? Only a
Apparently
handful of
so.
anomalies on record have ever been shown of being capable of such a feat. It seemed that they were dealing with something serious here. Down below, the battle continued. Siren Head had a unique advantage over most other combatants facing SCP-096.
Why?
It was an extra-dimensional being with no eyes, merely an innate psychic awareness.
That's
of
what
its
I was
victims around
thinking.
it.
That's what
Not
I was
unlike
thinking.
how
It doesn't have
SCP-096
eyes.
detect people seeing its face in photographs or videos, without need for any kind of direct contact.
Right.
As such, it was impossible for Siren Head to see the Shy Guy's face, and thus impossible for the Shy Guy to ever actually direct its aggression against it. Whether or not 096
That
would
would
kill steal Siren
explain-
Head's intended prey was another matter entirely. In the night's first minor miracle, Ricky and Elliot remembered that they'd been born with working legs, and decided that right now would be an excellent time to use
You can't.
them.
Y'all already
They
saw
turned
his
and began
face
to
though.
run while Siren
It's
Head
done.
continued
It's
beating
gonna
the Shy Guy
relentlessly
into
pursue
the
y'all
dirt,
until you did.
sprinting with all their might. However,
No
the growing
stopping it.
distance between them
And y'all took
aggravated
the
Shy Guy
pictures
further.
of it.
It sprang out from the dirt with unstoppable force and broke away from Siren Head's grip.
Yep.
The Shy Guy never wasted time, ever. It
Yep.
always made a beeline for its intended victim with one directive in mind: total annihilation.
Yep. Rip 'em to
Tonight
pieces.
is no different. Ricky and Elliot screamed as they heard its pounding gallop on the ground behind them. Closer,
Is
closer, closer.
Siren Head that
Then
fast
suddenly
though?
defying all spatial reasoning, Siren Head emerged out from the darkness between Ricky, Elliot, and 096.
Ah.
Being 40 feet tall,
So it
Siren
can
Head
move
dwarfed even the
fast?
Shy Guy. It lunged and grabbed the
Sure.
wailing white monstrosity, holding it as one would a particularly vicious cat, and trying to keep it in place. Siren Head wanted to crush the monster's bones and carry on stalking its feeble human prey, who were currently in the process of getting away, but somehow that was impossible.
You could.
It was almost like the monster had an indestructible skeleton.
All right.
Up above, the mobile task forces continued observing this clash of the Titans from their two helicopters.
Pretty
Seeing
good
how Siren Head was
representation.
somehow doing a serviceable job
I
of
didn't think it would
subduing
stand
the
a
Shy
chance,
Guy,
honestly,
one
but
of
it
the
makes
task force
sense.
members joked, maybe we should hire this guy. Another chimed in, I don't think we have any ballistic vests in his size. The
Yeah.
laughter soon turned to screams when Siren Head hurled 096's flailing body up at one of the helicopters with incredible force,
Nice.
knocking it out of the sky. It careened down to the ground, a ball of fear
Wow.
and violence before exploding. Anyone who survived the initial blast was unlucky enough to have seen the Shy Guy's face. Their screams rang out briefly before being abruptly silenced by the monster. Helicopter Alpha had no survivors. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Ricky and Elliot had kept running
Shouldn't
until
have
their
looked.
lungs burned and their muscles pumped thumbtacks. Seeing that the chaos was
Poor
so
Ricky.
far behind them now, they took a moment to stop and breathe, recomposing
Out of
themselves.
energy because no more
In the second
protein
minor
bars and
miracle of
stuff.
the night, it looked like the two of them had actually survived this ordeal.
Well, y'all
Those
crazy.
two
Y'all didn't
horrific
survive
monsters had
nothing.
canceled each other out. But Ricky and Elliot were about to learn a harsh lesson.
Yep.
They really weren't that lucky.
That's
the
correct.
last thing the two of them ever saw was Siren Head emerging from the darkness once more.
Oh.
The last thing they ever felt was the monster's terrible gnarled fingers curling around their bodies, too fast for them to escape. And the last
So
thing they ever heard was each other's screams, followed by a sickeningly meaty crunch. Elsewhere in the
Yeah.
forest, SCP-096's wails died down to its usual muddling sob.
So
The
because
rage
they're
state
dead
had
now,
ended. All of its targets had been
its rage
destroyed.
state is done.
It just hadn't been
even
the
though
one
it
to
didn't
do
kill
all
it.
of the destroying, per se.
Right.
Not long after that, Helicopter Bravo descended safely, and the remaining MTF members closed around the blubbering beast. Someone blackbagged it, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that was at least one monster taken care of tonight. What about the other one? The MTF lieutenant asked. The team's commander shook his head and said, let's worry about that freak later and get 096 back.
Worry
to
about it
containment.
later?
This place gives me the creeps.
That'd be a
Now go check
reason.
out SCP-096, look at a picture of Shy Guy in space.
That would be a reason that it did not get classified as an anomaly, which is honestly a really, really good way that they portrayed this. Now, I don't know the inner workings of Trevor Henderson's creatures. Like, I know about them just as in I recognize it. Like, I know a little bit about them based on what I've seen, some animations and stuff like that, but I don't know how powerful they are. Being that has spatial anomalous properties, that seems that it's very, very resilient, and it could probably do a lot of damage to 096. But I still don't think it could kill it. You know, it's indestructible. Like technically he's, I mean, I don't know if he's indestructible, but he's very damage resistant. Very, very interesting. At any rate, who do you think, guys? What do you think? It's really, really cool to see this. I always love, I'm not a big fan of the art, but SCP Explained does some really, really cool videos, and I really love the narration. Very, very good voices and stories too. So anyway, guys, subscribe to them. Subscribe to me if you like reactions as well. Give me a thumbs up on the video, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate y'all.